The Art of Being Ruled. Wyndham Lewis. Original publication 1926. 1989 edition. Narrated by Skeptical Waves. Part 11. Proudhon and Rousseau. Chapter 10. Rousseau's mysterious power of awakening hostility. It is characteristic of the destiny of Rousseau that, long dead and buried, men should still, at the contact of his mind, wish to rush to his grave and drag him out. Proudhon behaves almost as though his enemy were alive. The evocation of a living person, which is one of the great attributes of Rousseau's writings, worked on him to the full. And it is no wonder that this quality of life, when Rousseau was actually alive and in the flesh, should have caused the hostile ebullience that it did. But it is not only the quality of life that makes Rousseau remarkable. In reading any of the dossier of his violent misunderstandings with his contemporaries, you recognize some force at work of such a peculiar, or at all events alien, nature that immediately it produces a violent ferment wherever he moves. The contemporary intellectual world of Paris, the society of the philosophic 18th century, presents a strange spectacle as it is traversed by this disturbing genius, admittedly so much more powerful and original than anything else that it met. Rousseau, the great traditional landmark of revolutionary France, the traditional inspirer of the revolution, was yet the opposite of all his revolutionary contemporaries, so strangely opposed to them in temper and intelligence, indeed, that however much they might vary among themselves, beside him they all draw together, and all you see is this isolated, foreign intelligence, like a messenger from another universe, and all the others grouped as one man against him. And still, nearly a century afterwards, the scandal, the shock, had not subsided. Another typical Frenchman, who would have been thoroughly at home in pre-revolutionary French philosophe society, Proudhon, is still quivering with rage as he reads Rousseau's book, and contemplates with horror the bold delinquencies of this personality. Rousseau, it is true, was a Swiss, but that will not account for the extent and depth of this fissure that divided him from all that typical, discursive, sociable French society in the midst of which he burst his antisocial code, so that he remains the loneliest figure in the intellectual history of any European country. As you watch with astonishment in the dark backward and abysm of history all those people separating themselves from this famous figure with a chemical and mathematical precision, you feel that some force is at work similar to the extremist racial disparity. The few that adhere to him are not the most characteristic of their time and country. So where Rousseau was concerned, Proudhon was being, as in everything else, traditional. He is, of course, nothing if not conventional, the conventional French revolutionary man of the people. He possesses hardly any originality at all. Even his famous saying, "La propriété c'est un volume," is a theft, is somebody else's. All his force is in his race and class in the long organization that he has behind him, and of which he is an obedient, hypnotized product. But there was truly a principle of disintegration, a nihilism, in Rousseau that accounted for all the instinctive hatred of him. Any little organization that Europe has ever had has been centered in France, and symbolized by her classicist culture. And it was a true instinct on the part of the contemporaries of both Proudhon and Rousseau that made them, as Frenchmen, bristle at the contact of this un-European mind, of this powerful mystical intelligence who had strayed amongst them. Of all the Roman provincials, the French have been the ones who inherited most of that marvelous organizing capacity of the Romans. Had the whole of Western Europe had this racial, organizing instinct of the French, Europe might have met Asia on more equal terms when the conflict came, as it has come today. It was the French culture of the English ruling caste that made England's power possible. And it was this highly organized French social instinct that absorbed with so much disgust the revolutionary doctrine of Rousseau. Rousseau was as truly a revolutionary as Bakunin. Proudhon was as little revolutionary as Bouvard or Pécuchet. Proudhon, as an anti-revolutionary, anti-religious mind, can be regarded as one of the last bulwarks of the Roman world. There is nothing so French in France today as Proudhon. The Roman becomes more and more eroded and immolated. On the other hand, Rousseau is the great landmark of the new world of revolutionary modern Europe. This has nothing to do with whether or to what extent he was responsible for the French Revolution. He stands just behind it, as a great symbol of disintegration, of the final abdication of the Roman, pagan, legal intelligence to the forces of nature stronger in mystery, of an intenser life and deeper intelligence than itself. It is as though the militant East had entered into Europe with Rousseau. He seems like a messenger sent to the gossiping, agnostic, mechanical 18th century philosophic salon, to announce a God's displeasure, or to throw it, with his eloquence, into a preliminary disarray.